Look at this. It's built on nothing but decay. This is where it all started. A capital of lies.
Imagine waking up and realizing that the country you live in isn't actually a functioning republic at all.
Right.
Instead, it's like this elaborately rigged global casino.
Yeah, that's a chilling thought.
And worse, you aren't the one running the house. You're just the mark sitting at the table, completely unaware that the deck was stacked, long before you even walked in the door.
Exactly.
So for you, the learner listening right now, I know you're probably used to reading about history, politics, and technology as, well, completely separate subjects. But today's deep dive merges them all into a highly provocative dystopian critique of modern society.
And it is a premise that really forces you to look at every single piece, the societal puzzle. Your bank account, your social media feed.
Your political leaders.
Yes, all of it, through an incredibly dark lens.
Yeah. So today's deep dive is pulling from this really fascinating, massive source material called the Dmitrii Gorbatenko LogBook.
Which is huge, by the way.
It's sprawling. For those of you who love falling down rabbit holes, this logbook covers, everything. From the philosophical purpose of monks and AI evolution to the creeping dangers of biometric surveillance and digital bureaucracy.
It really runs the gamut.
It does. But today we are focusing entirely on one fiercely critical essay from this collection, and it's titled USA, the Global Capital of the Scam.
And before we go a single step further, we really have to set the parameters for this conversation, because the ideas we're exploring today are, well, they're explosive.
Absolutely. And let me be crystal clear with you about how we are handling this. This source material contains intensely politically charged content.
Very much so.
Gorbatenko explicitly calls out contemporary figures like Donald Trump and directly compares modern American political tactics to, 20th century authoritarian regimes.
Right. Heavy stuff.
Really heavy. So we are strictly here as your guides to unpack the author's perspective. We are not taking a left-wing or a right-wing side today.
No, not at all.
We are not endorsing these viewpoints, nor are we condemning them. Our mission is simply to map out the architecture of these arguments so you can understand the ideas being presented.
Because the core thesis driving this essay is that the United States hasn't just, stumbled into inequality.
Right.
It has deliberately transitioned into a global hub of systemic exploitation.
Wow.
Yeah. The phrase used in the text is predatory governance. It implies a system that isn't broken by accident, but one that is functioning exactly as intended.
To, hunt and extract wealth from the bottom and funnel it to the top.
Exactly.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because if you want to build a scam state, you can't just start stealing out in the open.
No, you get caught.
Right. You have to legally change the rules of the game first. And the author points to the institutionalization of what they call the hustle.
State-sponsored grifting.
State-sponsored grifting. Exactly. And to pull this off, you need deregulated fraud. Gorbatenko specifically targets the systematic dismantling of major oversight bodies. Think about the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, the CFPB.
Right, which was massive.
Yeah, this was an agency literally designed after the 2008 financial crash to stop predatory lending.
Wow.
To step in when a bank tries to hit you with deceptive overdraft fees or trap you in a toxic mortgage.
And when you intentionally weaken an agency like that, you aren't just cutting red tape. You are giving predatory lenders a massive green light to treat average citizens like open wallets.
Yeah.
The text also highlights the deliberate easing of regulations by the SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission.
So the author is essentially arguing that it's like taking the referees completely off the field in a high-stakes sport.
That's a great way to put it.
Right. But it's even worse than that. It's like rewriting the rule book so that a personal foul gets a regular player ejected from the game, but burning down the entire stadium just gets the team owner a small, tax penalty.
Exactly.
And the really brilliant or dark part of the scam is convincing the audience in the stands that this total lack of rules is actually an exciting new innovation for the game.
What's fascinating here is that Gorbatenko insists this deregulation is a deliberate economic transition. We are so conditioned to view deregulation as a natural pendulum swing toward free market capitalism.
It's just meant to boost business.
Right. But the logbook frames it as a shift from a society that builds wealth through actual production like manufacturing goods or creating tangible services to a society that extracts wealth through systemic looting.
And looting is the exact word used, especially when the essay dives into the crypto-criminal nexus.
Oh, yeah. That part is intense.
Gorbatenko goes really hard on unregulated digital assets, painting a picture of this modern Wild West economy, where massive rug pulls and elaborate Ponzi schemes are just allowed to flourish.
And for those of you who might not be deep into crypto, a rug pull isn't just a bad investment. It's a deliberate mechanical trap. The creators hype up a new digital token. They attract millions of dollars from average retail investors who are just desperate to build some wealth.
And then boom.
Boom. The creators suddenly drain the entire liquidity pool. They vanish with the real money, leaving the investors holding completely worthless code.
It's just gone. And the mechanism that allows that to happen on a systemic level is actually language. By labeling these deliberate traps as, financial innovation or technological breakthroughs, the regulators' hands are effectively tied.
Right.
The government becomes complicit through its own deliberate inaction.
Yeah, and if the financial guardrails are completely removed and the referees are blindfolded, what happens to the people who actually commit these massive schemes?
My guess is that the worst offenders don't just survive. They probably end up running the league. Does the framework address what happens to the people pulling the strings?
It does. They are heavily insulated. The text outlines the creation of what it calls elite protectionism. This is the mechanics of a two-tier legal system. Gorbatenko argues that corporate CEOs, high-level political insiders, and what the text terms the criminal elite operate under a completely different set of consequences.
Right, so it's the difference between wholesale and retail crime.
Exactly.
If an average citizen walks into a bank and commits fraud for, say, $10,000, they are going to prison.
Oh, without question.
Their life, their family's life, is fundamentally ruined. But if a CEO oversees a corporate initiative that deliberately defrauds millions of people out of billions of dollars, like opening fake accounts in their names or knowingly selling toxic assets,
The corporation might pay a settlement.
yeah, a settlement. And that settlement usually amounts to just a fraction of their quarterly profits. The company doesn't go to prison, and the CEO often walks away with a massive severance package.
That structural inequality is the absolute bedrock of the scam state described in the logbook.
But wait, establishing a two-tier system where a small group is allowed to systematically loot the economy, that's incredibly dangerous for the elite, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, if the public fully realizes the game is rigged to that degree, they will revolt. They'll burn the casino down.
Which means you need a psychological pacifier. You have to convince the public to accept their own exploitation. And the text argues this is done by weaponizing the very concept of freedom. Gorbatenko introduces the illusion of freedom, claiming the word has been stripped of its actual lived reality and turned into a marketing tool.
A marketing tool?
Yes. It's used to convince the public to eagerly dismantle their own collective protections, all while power concentrates at the very top.
It's a clever trick. You tell the public that consumer protection laws are an infringement on their personal liberty, so they vote to remove the laws that were literally keeping the sharks at bay.
Exactly.
I have to push back slightly here, though, to really deepen the analysis.
Okay, sure.
Because framing freedom purely as a marketing tool feels like a massive stretch. If the author is claiming that freedom is just an illusion designed by elites, how does this framework account for the everyday freedoms that regular citizens still clearly exercise?
Right, that's a fair question.
Like, I chose to buy the microphone I'm speaking into. I chose my career. We have the freedom of speech to even discuss this essay right now. Saying freedom is entirely a fake concept just because corporate crime exists seems, overly cynical.
I get that. But that nuance is crucial to understand the author's point. The text isn't necessarily denying that you have the liberty to choose your brand of coffee or the freedom to post your opinion online.
Okay.
Gorbatenko is focused on systemic, high-level freedom. The freedom to actually shape the economic and political realities of your country.
I see.
The freedom from being financially exploited by opaque monopolistic systems. That level of freedom is exclusively reserved for the top tier. The author claims there is a symbiotic relationship between the state and these criminal CEOs, whose only allegiance is to quarterly gains, devoid of global ethics.
So your everyday freedoms are permitted, perhaps even encouraged, so long as they don't interfere with the systemic extraction happening above you. But wait, even if the elites are extracting wealth at the top, isn't the fact that I can start a business, or more importantly, vote for different leaders, a sign that systemic freedom isn't just an illusion? I mean, I can theoretically help replace the people running the system.
Under Gorbatenko's framework, that's like having the freedom to walk around the casino floor and choose which slot machine you want to play.
Okay.
Or even vote on who the floor manager should be. You feel empowered.
Right, I'm making choices.
But you have zero access to the back room, where the machines are actually programmed to ensure the house always wins. Both potential floor managers are paid by the same casino owners. You are free to play the games, but you are not free to change the mathematical odds of the system.
Wow. Okay, that really clarifies the mechanics of the argument. It's control disguised as autonomy.
Yes.
But to maintain that illusion-like, to keep people staring at the flashing lights of the slot machines instead of looking for that back room, you need an incredibly aggressive propaganda playbook.
You do. It requires a massive psychological campaign to keep the public fractured, angry at each other, and blindly loyal to the system.
Here's where it gets really interesting. And again, keeping strictly to the arguments presented in the text, the logbook gets highly specific about how this propaganda functions today.
It does.
Gorbatenko explicitly points to the influence of Donald Trump and the network of political architects behind his movements as pioneers here. The author argues they brought this state-sponsored grifting to its logical political extreme.
Yes.
The text draws a direct, unblinking parallel between the political rhetoric used in the modern United States and the tactics deployed in 1930s Germany.
Which is an incredibly heavy comparison.
Very.
The author focuses heavily on the mastery of the big lie. And this isn't just a political buzzword. It's a specific historical psychological strategy.
Right.
It involved the relentless, unwavering repetition of a massive falsehood. The mechanics of it are deeply insidious. You tell a small lie, people might fact-check it. But if you tell a lie so massive and you repeat it loudly enough across enough platforms and demand absolute loyalty to that lie, it bypasses critical thinking entirely.
Wow.
For a large segment of the population, it ceases to be a lie and simply becomes their perceived reality.
And the essay identifies 3 key tactical similarities that bridge that 20th century authoritarian playbook with modern American political strategy.
Right, let's go through them.
The first is the cult of personality. Gorbatenko argues there has been a deliberate, engineered shift away from a focus on the Constitution or the abstract, shared concept of the rule of law.
Yeah.
Instead, the focus pivots entirely toward the infallible will of a strongman leader. The actual democratic institutions matter far less than the individual in charge.
Exactly. And the second tactic is the othering of dissent.
Okay.
In a healthy republic, you debate your political opponents. In the system the author describes, you don't debate them. You label them as a fundamental existential threat to the nation itself.
As enemies.
Right. The text notes that journalists, scientists, and political rivals are increasingly branded as enemies of the people.
And we really have to look at how the delivery mechanism for that othering has evolved,
Oh, absolutely.
In the 1930s, you had to rely on radio broadcasts and physical rallies to whip up that kind of localized anger. Today, we have algorithmic social media feeds.
Which changes everything.
Yeah, these platforms aren't just neutral town squares. They are mathematically optimized to prioritize outrage. When you are fed a constant, personalized stream of content telling you that your neighbor is your literal enemy, that othering happens at a speed and scale that 20th century dictators could only dream of.
Which ties directly into the third tactic, weaponizing the illusion of freedom as a propaganda tool.
Right, bringing it back to that.
Using the patriotic language of liberty to justify tearing down the guardrails. It's a psychological sleight of hand, where stripping away consumer protections or environmental regulations is celebrated as a victory for the common man.
When in reality,
it only serves to enrich the elite at the top of the pyramid.
Man. So to maintain this two-tier system where the elites loot the economy, you really need a powerful psychological strategy to keep the public compliant. This raises a massive question about how we view the global stage, doesn't it?
This raises an important question indeed.
Because we are so conditioned to look at a map and draw a hard line, the good democratic republics are over here and the bad autocratic dictatorships are over there.
But Gorbatenko suggests those old definitions are completely obsolete.
Really?
Yes. The traditional lines are blurring. The author synthesizes this entire dynamic into the concept of modern fraud states.
Fraud states.
Yes. A fraud state isn't defined by a military junta holding a capital city hostage. It's defined by a concentration of power in the hands of individuals who view the state not as a sacred institution, but as a personal piggy bank.
Unbelievable.
They prioritize their personal wealth and the absolute loyalty of their subordinates over the actual functional governance of the country.
And because of this shift into a fraud state model, The author claims that the United States is increasingly finding itself grouped with nations like Russia in international discourse,
Right.
particularly regarding human rights, corruption, and economic stability. The essay points to the U.S. adopting a deeply transactional foreign policy.
And we need to define how a transactional foreign policy actually functions.
Okay, let's do it.
It means evaluating international relationships not based on shared democratic values, human rights records, or long-term global stability.
Yeah.
Instead, it's based entirely on short-term financial leverage or immediate political favor.
So it's like treating global alliances like high-end real estate deals.
Pretty much.
You don't care if the guy buying the penthouse is a warlord or a dictator who crushes his own people, just as long as his check clears and he flatters the building owner.
Right, exactly.
The author warns that this approach increasingly favors fellow autocrats over traditional democratic allies, creating what the text ominously calls a global axis of dictatorship.
It is a sweeping, incredibly dark diagnosis of global politics.
Yeah.
But what gives this essay its real teeth is how Gorbatenko brings all of these massive macroeconomic and geopolitical concepts right down to the individual daily level.
That's true. We've spent the last few minutes talking about 1930s Germany, strongmen, and global axes. Those phrases automatically evoke dramatic historical images. We picture tanks rolling through the streets, secret police kicking down doors in the middle of the night, physical barricades.
But the author's ultimate warning is that we are staring out the window looking for tanks, completely missing the fact that the occupation has already happened.
Wow.
The new face of oppression doesn't look like a military force. It has become sanitized, gamified, and entirely invisible.
So think about this in your own life. We mentioned earlier how algorithms amplify anger, but the text goes deeper into the financial mechanics of this invisible control. Think about a subprime loan. It's not just a bad bank product. It is a mathematical trap designed to keep a working-class family paying exorbitant interest rates for decades, ensuring they can never accumulate generational wealth.
Effectively turning them into indentured servants to a financial institution.
Exactly. Or think about the last time you blindly clicked agree on a 50-page digital contract just to use a basic service.
We all do it.
Buried in that text are forced arbitration clauses that strip away your constitutional right to take a corporation to court if they wrong you.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the author is arguing that the tools of modern control are the very things we rely on for daily convenience.
Right.
The weapons aren't firearms. They are financial instruments, opaque terms of service, and lines of code.
Yeah.
The subprime loan that traps you in debt, the digital contract that strips your rights, the polarizing algorithm that keeps you fighting your neighbor instead of looking at the casino owners. These are the new barricades.
And the global consequences of this are massive.
Mm-hmm.
The logbook concludes that by perfecting and then exporting this scam-based governance, the United States risks completely losing its moral standing on the world stage.
Yeah.
Gorbatenko warns that by embracing this model, the U.S. is becoming indistinguishable from the very authoritarian regimes it spent the entire 20th century opposing. It's just that the American version is wrapped in slick marketing and legal loopholes.
It all circles back to that fake freedom sold to the masses. According to the author, this illusion of liberty exists simply to keep the public pacified.
Right.
It's designed to quietly enrich a global criminal elite without triggering the kind of physical, messy revolution that historical dictatorships often faced when they pushed their people too far.
Because it's invisible.
Exactly. It is ultimate control achieved through convenience, debt, and constant confusion.
So, to summarize this incredibly intense journey through Dmitrii Gorbatenko's logbook, the framework presented argues that through deliberate financial deregulation, the creation of a two-tier justice system that immunizes corporate criminals, and a sophisticated propaganda playbook borrowed from 20th century autocrats, the United States has engineered itself into the global capital of the scam. It is a system where the hustler is king, the rules only apply to the poor, and oppression is no longer physical, but digital and financial.
It paints a picture of a society where the citizen is no longer a participant in a republic, but simply the raw material being mined for profit.
So what does this all mean? How do you, the listener, process a critique of this sweeping and deeply unsettling?
The most provocative question built on this text isn't about global politics, it's about your daily life. If Gorbatenko is right, and the modern face of oppression isn't a secret police force, but rather a subprime loan, an opaque digital contract, or a polarizing social media algorithm, It means the tools we use every single day for our own convenience are actually the architecture of our own control.
Wow.
So ask yourself, at what point does simply participating in the modern digital economy, blindly clicking agree, scrolling the outrage feed, taking on the debt just to stay afloat, at what point does your participation become complicity in your own exploitation?
It definitely forces you to look at the terms of service on your life a little differently. We want to thank you for joining us on this deep dive. It was a heavy, provocative exploration, but as always, we encourage you to take these perspectives, wrestle with them, and above all, keep questioning the systems operating invisibly all around you.